after Brexit, Nicola Sturgeon, because you had in 2014 you had the Scottish independent referendum, which was a very strong no thank you, we want to be part of the United Kingdom. 2015 election, SNP swept across most of Scotland via 1 or 2 seats, and then this election, just over half. Do you think people have said, actually, no, we've already voted, quite recently that we don't want a referendum. Nicola Sturgeon, do one, we don't want another one.
Yeah.
Do you think this also calls for Nicola Sturgeon to resign?
Nicola Sturgeon, I'm not too in the know about Nicola Sturgeon and her policies and everything. But I don't know if she should resign or not. Well, she's been there for a while now, and people are starting to get a bit annoyed because one of the main things she's campaigning for is the Scottish independence, and they've already had that referendum.
So do you think it's too soon to?
Well, no, she probably should resign if it's a big enough demand for her to resign. Get someone else in there, maybe have someone who actually was stay.
Yeah, but people could always say, that so SNP has suffered huge losses there. So here, last election, 56 seats, now only 35 seats. But people could also say the same for Theresa May. She called this election thinking, clean sweep, 80+ majority or so was predicted, and now she's coming, just short of majority. Look, 7 seats, so 319 is the forecast at the moment. Just 7. If that's correct, that's 7 seats, short of a majority. Do you think if so? Let's say Nicola Sturgeon, did decide to resign, Louise. Do you think that's fair? That Theresa May should resign as well. Or do you think she hasn't suffered massive losses compared to the last election, for example? Not looking at exit polls or anything.
I don't think because you don't get the results you want, you should resign. To be honest.
So do you think
I don't think she should resign. I mean, she's only looking for the Scottish independence of the UK, but.
I don't think she should necessarily resign, but I think she should go a bit less on the Scottish independence. Because they've already had the vote and they voted to remain part of the UK, so
do you think the clear message is, pipe down, Nicola, we've just had it?
Or if people, the moment people start going on about her resigning, then I think she should. But if people don't go on about her resigning that much, I think it's fine.
Yeah, if they're still happy to have her at the party, then there's no need for her to resign. But yeah, if people are starting to get a bit annoyed by the figures, by the fact that they've lost loads of seats, 21 seats.
So, or SNP or Conservative.
What's this?
SNP or Conservative, which one have lost loads of seats? Sorry, I switched off. SNP. Okay, so just showed there, minus 21 seats from the last election, but Conservative are only on. Oh, wait for the graphic to come up again. Sorry, minus 12 seats. But Conservative only just getting a majority last time. Do you think, considering results of last election, just over a majority with 331 seats, do you think Theresa May was, a bit too cocky on calling this one?
Definitely.
I think she was. I think she fully expected just a clean sweep and an easy victory.
She wasn't expecting Corbyn to have that much of an impact within young people.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone was, to be honest.
Yeah. Corbyn's campaign was very successful compared to Theresa May's.
But, I was also reading this morning, that Corbyn has spent most of his time as a member of parliament, a politician, out campaigning for stuff, whether it's been nuclear disarmament, legalising things, stopping war, for example. He's, part of most of his career has been, out talking to people, campaigning, and Theresa May necessarily hasn't. Theresa May, has been, quite lucky in the sense of a politician, She was Home Secretary for 6 years, quite a reserved MP, but then you have Jeremy Corbyn, who's quite outlandish. I wouldn't say reckless, but he's quite, outspoken and straight to the point. And do you think people are now wanting that kind of honest, straight to the point politics?
Yeah, I think people are getting fed up of the lies politicians tell.
The promises.
But
I think people get reckless as well, though.
But exactly my point. People could also say, that he was reckless in the sense, he's doing loads of promises with actually no, people are saying, people say, oh yeah, the Labour manifesto here is fully costed, but put it into practice, can it be fully costed?
I think what he's saying is almost too much what everyone wants. Like the whole minimum wage being risen, free tuition fees, all of this stuff. It's what everyone wants, but to a point that it's almost like, is it possible,
Like
or
kind
is he
of,
just saying
kind
that?
of fair, trying to saying
It's
it. Yeah.
kind of Is he just saying that because he knows that loads of young people are going to want that, so they're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to vote for him. But is it actually going to work? And is it like realistic?
An argument against that is people say is you need to dream to be able to actually achieve something. So if you don't dream of actually doing what you want or what people want, then it won't be achieved at all.
But there is still a limit.
There is still a limit.
I think
Like,
he got sorry.
No, it's fine, guys.
I think he got a bit overexcited as the campaign was going
Yeah.
through. to be
Maybe
honest.
So-
if he included less of less policies, because we've got the two manifestos on here, and the Labour one is almost twice the size of the Conservative one.
But so people have also said to Jeremy Corbyn as well. Throughout his campaign, it hasn't neither party has really spoken much about Brexit.
No.
Let's get to the point. The whole reason we're having this general election is because of Brexit and Theresa May. I don't think necessarily in the sense she was power hungry, like because she was already prime minister at the end of the day. I think she got, because she was always in parliament, getting comments like, you weren't elected in, we don't want you here. And I think you're not here to, you shouldn't lead Brexit because you weren't voted in. So I think actually what she's done is actually, in a sense, so people could slate her for calling this and trashing the country, for example, but actually she's let the people decide.
But I think
Based on the basis of Brexit, but no campaign has been about Brexit.
what I saw earlier, like I said, was that someone had said she did that and she called it, and maybe she thought they were gonna vote her in, and then she'd actually have the right, and she'd have power, and people would finally accept her and be like, yeah, this is our prime minister, we need to get on with it. But it's completely turned around, and the media has just slated her for a very long time and said that she isn't right for the job, and she isn't worthy, and now it's just sort of been proved a bit, but at the same time it hasn't, because
So it's a bit of a double-edged sword,
yeah, yeah.
theoretically.
So with what you were saying, do you reckon she called the snap election on the fact that she was fed up of what people were saying?
I think that she called it in the sense of, so people decided on the referendum, people decided against what most major parties were campaigning against, via the odd one like UKIP, for example, and I think I think on the basis of that, she was like, so you just let people so Brexit was the main issue. We had this, and I think her theory was, so we've had Brexit now, let people decide who they want to lead Brexit. And I think she thought, I'm the one here who's talking about triggering Article 50. If I go in right in before the election, trigger Article 50, have all my plans laid out, it'll just be a clean sweep election, which it hasn't been in the case. She was predicted an 80-seat majority, but she's just fallen 7 seats, forecasted to fall 7 seats short of the majority.
So you think she was trying to make it more democratic than it was?
I think she was trying to make it it wasn't the sense of she was there power hungry, I want to officially be prime minister, because at the end of the day she already was prime minister. I think she wanted to let people decide who do they want to lead the country through Brexit, and I feel like Jeremy Corbyn has been not really focusing on Brexit. He's been trying to push away issues, because looking at the manifesto, there's more stuff here about the NHS, which, don't get me wrong, is important, but Brexit is the main issue we're having this, and that I think that should be the main vocal point.
An argument towards that was in the NHS. I know someone who works in the NHS, and I've seen a lot of what doctors have been saying, and they've not seen it. They've not seen it this bad as it is right now, for years. Like this person I was talking to, has worked in the NHS for 14 years, and it's the worst it's ever been right now.
But could you say, for example, so the NHS over the years, hasn't really expanded much due to, growing, population, immigration, which isn't a bad thing. Isn't a bad thing. But hasn't really had the chance to have a massive spending put towards it, and hasn't had the chance to grow. And a lot of people are saying, the NHS, I read an article about how, the failure of the NHS isn't necessarily spending, it's people abusing it, going to hospital for a stubbed toe, that's wasting a hospital bed, theoretically.
You mentioned the immigration and the NHS there. Immigration also very much helps our NHS.
Yep,
There's
isn't
a
it
lot of our
50% of the workforce or so is immigration?
Yeah, and we've got a lot fantastic doctors coming over from multiple other countries helping our NHS be what it is and help it survive, help the people in their hospital. In fact, I don't think our NHS could exist right now without the immigration.
Yeah, but do you think people might be abusing the NHS a little bit? I read this massive rant someone had on Twitter, about people not really needing to get paracetamol on prescription, because if you actually add up all in total, it costs. So the average, so for example, I know someone who actually has paracetamol on prescription, 2 a day, works out 45p a week, but she gets it on prescription.
The problem is that we're told to use our GPs a lot more than actually going to NHS and A&E and everything like this. But our local GPs are all full up, and we really struggle to get appointments. Like I had an appointment for something a few weeks ago. It was quite. I wanted to get it checked quite bad. I had to wait in the end because I didn't want to go and clog up A&E. But I had to wait 3 weeks to find out what it was, and by that time the problem had gone. So I booked an appointment and everything, and by the time I actually got the appointment, or got to the appointment, my problem had gone. So I still went. I still got it checked. But it's just really, really busy in our GPs.
So what would you say? So in an ideal world, let's go around the table here and discuss what in an ideal world, what would you do at the NHS, to order, to stop this crisis? What do you think, rather than saying, increase spending, which, don't get me wrong, is needed, and actually the Conservative government have come out and said, we are going to increase it actually by 2 billion. Well, I read somewhere, I don't know how much this is true because actual figures aren't in manifesto. I read, Labour want to increase spending by 6 billion, while Conservative said about 8 billion. I don't know about the figures, if someone would like to find figures. Zoe, what do you think is the main thing that NHS needs at the moment to help sort out this crisis?
I don't really know, because I haven't been paying much attention to this whole stuff. But I think the stuff that you guys are saying about like A&E and stuff, that was a big issue that I saw a lot, that people were saying that people almost abuse the NHS. Like, they don't need to be going in for all of these things. You could just book an appointment with your doctor. But also there was something I saw. Junior doctors are being heavily overworked. Like, they're doing like 20-hour shifts.
So do you think in the sense of them being overworked, do you think there's a shortage of them, in the sense that they're being heavily overworked? Do you think you're nodding your head, Sam? Do you think there's a massive shortage?
Yeah, there is, and the ones we've got right now are fantastic, because let's go to the Manchester attack, which happened recently. We had doctors which weren't even being paid for what they were doing. They turned up in the middle of the night, because it happened at, what was it, 10:30? 10:30. Turn up to hospitals unpaid, just to help the victims. So we had unpaid doctors, or people who were being unpaid, not paid, for their work they were doing on the night, and they had to turn up to be able to help, or else they would have been short of staff. So thank God for that we got them. They're fantastic. They really do help us. But yeah, we need more. In my opinion, we need more.
So then again, let's go further down the line to why there might be a shortage of junior doctors. Do you think becoming a doctor should be pushed more in education, if that's the case then?
No,
It is a very long process to becoming a doctor. You have to do a very long course at university. You have to be really into it.
It's something like 7-8 years to actually become a fully qualified
It's something you have
doctor.
to be fully dedicated. and put,
Yeah, I
everything
don't think
into.
it's something that you can just sort of be like, oh, fancy being a doctor. It's something that you have to sort of grow up thinking, I want to help people. Plus, being a doctor is a hard job. You have to see so much like pain. You have to go through all of this. You have to also tell
and also people's personal
exactly.
stories
You
as
have
well.
to talk to people. You have to do all that. It's not a type of job that you can sort of just
But
go into.
it's also like very rewarding in the sense of actually, like, to be fair, like for junior doctors, pay isn't great. But when you become a full-time doctor, pay is actually quite decent.
But that is a very long process to get in there.
One of the problems in the NHS is the fact that there's some doctors who do the same work as everyone else on massive pay slips. They have massive pay slips, and then there's some other doctors who do the exact same as what the ones with the massive pay slips do on tiny pay. They get just above minimum wage, I think it is.
Yeah, it doesn't really work how
No,
that happens.
yeah, there's some with like 10 times what they get, what the other doctors get, and if they do the same job. I think the wages could be sorted out better, and then I think, I don't know if we spoke about this, but when they increase the MPs or the members of parliaments their pay by 10%, and then that could have gone towards doctors, because that's a lot. 10% is a big increase in wage, especially for members of parliament. That could have gone towards wages in hospitals, It could have gone towards funding more beds.
But like for example, quite a lot of like so for example, actually funny enough, on Monday, you know, the school did an interview with the Labour representative of Bath and the Conservative one, which happened to be Ben Howlett, and you know, I asked him personally and said, you know, there's been this 10% increase in MPs you know pay. Do you not think, you know, that shouldn't have really happened? Because MPs, you know, on very healthy wages. Do you not think, you know, that money should have actually gone towards something else? And then he openly said, you know, like, you know, the extra money I got given, you know, actually I gave it to charities, you know, helping people.
That's good. 'Cause him as a Conservative, it's good that he stood up and disagreed with what his party did and gave his pay away to charities, which is fantastic of him. But yeah, I do believe that 10% should have been put into the NHS.
Okay, so going back to a few statistics here, so we have Bath up, obviously, you know, with the Bath Studio School, so we'll have a look at our own constituency. So we have a 74.3 turnout. Liberal Democrat, we're a Hob House with 23,436 votes. That's a 47.3% overall. And then Conservative Ben Howlett is 70,742 with a 35.8% lead there.
How many percent was Labour? Sorry.
Labour, we'll just get on to that now. So he only got 7,279 with a 14.7%.
That was a letdown, to be honest, because he came on Monday talking about all his plans for Labour and like all he saw. Like,
but people could also say, you know, his, you know, because he didn't like necessarily like having watched that opinion. I felt like it was just, you know, like reflecting what Jeremy Corbyn has said, and there was nothing like when, you know, Ben Howlett came in, he said what he was going to do for constituency. I felt, you know, the Labour MP just come and said, you know, nationally.
yeah, like he didn't say anything new at all.
Yeah. So and then you have finally the Green Party, Elena Field, 1,125 votes with a 2.3%. -9, and actually this is, you know, so we'll have a look at the swings here as well, actually. Liberal Democrat, a 17.6% swing there. Green Party, -9.7% swing there. Conservative, -2.0% lead, and Labour actually an increase with 1.5% swing there. So you know, going back to, you know, deciding what our coalition might be, Zoe, what kind of reactions has there been on Twitter just about everything in general?
Well, there was quite a few funny tweets about the hung parliament. I'm just going to try and get them up quickly.
Well, in the meantime, while Zoe does that, I actually found this rather interesting graph. I don't know, it's a bit of a joke, to be honest. But it said the Labour/Conservative cycle said people blame the Tories, but Labour are responsible with money and debt when in power. By the way, this isn't official anywhere. This is just, you know, something I found online that, you know, has probably been posted by a Conservative leader, voter. It said the result is that Labour is never trusted under difficult circumstances, and the Conservatives never allowed to govern but having to make any hard decisions to save the economy. So it's like a massive diagram of a circle with 3 points. So it said Labour Party, tax, spends too much and ruins the economy. Do you think that is kind of a reflection of what Jeremy Corbyn said about his spending plans on tuition fees, you know, increasing all this spending everywhere else where, you know, spending too much, and, you know, taxes, you know, necessarily going through the roof, like in corporation tax, for example? Do you think that first part of the cycle was true?
There's an element of truth to it, because the last time Labour were actually in, they ended up putting us in quite a bit of debt, and the Conservatives came in and they got rid of that debt that time. But I read somewhere when the Conservatives came in and sorted out, who was it? David Cameron, was it?
Yeah.
They were cutting different things in different places, and I read somewhere, which I can't tell you where I read this, but that the cuts which he made, a lot of them were unnecessary, and he could have done it in much better places, which could have benefited our country more. But he made some drastic cuts in places which could have not actually been cut.
Okay, so then the next part of the cycle is Conservatives pick up the pieces and bring the economy back under control again. And then the third part of the cycle says country suffers memory loss and votes for Labour in anti-austerity protests. Do you think that graph is an accurate representation? Obviously, it's not official anywhere. You know, no media outlet has published this. It's just, you know, someone that's put online. Do you think this, you know, kind of might be a bit of a reality report?
That's what I was just saying. I think there's slight flaws in that. There's a few things that are missed out.
Okay.
A few things that are missed out of that graph, like I said, the things which didn't have to be cut, so that a few unnecessary cuts made, and maybe, and that was a different Labour at the time. They had obviously had a few. Quite a
Well,
few different
obviously, you know, Tony Blair, you know, coming in what was it, 1997, with, you know, a massive, you know, over 400 seat majority.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously declining, you know, over the years. So, you know, having a look now, as we'll have a look more at, you know, film. So, well, looking at this graphic, you know, Conservatives, you know, painfully close to the line. Do you think, you know, Luis, do you think Theresa May, you know, is a bit gutted, you know, as these results came in? You know, not really, obviously not what she hoped for.
Should be. I mean, being 6-7 seats away from gaining the majority, and should be gutted, to be honest.
But do you think, you know, so looking at that, it actually looks like, so Lib Dem in the last election, only 8 seats have come back with 12. You know, Conservatives only a few seats off there. They've been getting a few of what were Conservative, you know, like the Conservative strongholds. You know, like we said about Canterbury at the beginning. You know, first time it's ever gone Labour. Do you think, you know, like Lib Dem's like quite a big comeback compared to the last election? Do you think has, like, you know, lost a few of Conservatives? Well, obviously it has lost seats there for the Conservatives.
Yeah, they have, and she should be really gutted about that. That's like her main,
But-
probably the main regret about her.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Luis, do you reckon it's Theresa May's fault for her campaigning, or do you reckon there was something she could have fixed up in her campaign? Where do you reckon they lost?
Well,
she lost her seats?
maybe turning up to at least a bit one or two more debates, then
Yeah, actually turn up.
maybe
to a debate.
answering some questions. Like one question in question time a few weeks ago, like she was avoiding questions. Like, I mean,
But Jeremy Corbyn's also been doing the same.
Yeah,
you know,
but-
people asked him, you know,
I mean-
what's your stance on, you know, Trident, and he, you know, kind of avoided the question.
I think that's like the standard politician. Like, you have to avoid questions as a politician. That's like your first rule. Like, avoid questions.
and avoid questions at all costs, even though, you know, it's not actually
Yeah.
an official rule.
Yeah. So do you? I want to ask you a question. When Jeremy Corbyn, he was planning to come to Bristol. He was planning to come to Bristol to do a talk in the NHS rally, which was planned. But then about 2 hours before this big debate, he said, in Cambridge, he said, I'm now going to this debate. I'm not going to turn. I'm going to be at Bristol. Do you reckon that was something that he just did spur of the moment, or do you reckon he planned to do that?
I reckon he'd been planning to do that, you know, and going on live TV and, like, you know, Theresa May, you know, you're too scared, you know, to come here and, you know, debate against me. When actually, like, Theresa May might have actually thought, you know, like, at the end of the day, she is Prime Minister. She was doing this election, you know, this campaign, this election, as well as running the country and starting sorting out Brexit negotiations, you know, having to do with other political things, you know, about Donald Trump here and there, and
Yeah.
She could have done the easy thing, which was stay in her comfy chair, not call any election.
you know, have quite a lot of people unfair. And actually, I do have a lot of respect, even though, you know, she hasn't come out the way she wanted. She has my respect in the fact of, you know, let people decide who they want in, and they still have got her, but it's again who she goes with, and does she, you know, the DUP are referred to as, you know, the Irish Tories, and it could most likely be them. You know, Lib Dem said throughout this election, you know, we were not going to coalition, but everyone thought this election Conservative will come out with an 80-seat majority, and coalition was at a hung parliament was only a very, very small probability that might happen, and obviously now it's a massive probability because we have got a hung parliament.
So do you definitely think it's going to be a Conservative coalition, not a with the Labour, with the minority?
Yeah, definitely, because, you know, like I just said, you know, like they're referred to as the Irish Tories. You know, they've got 10 seats. You know, that will just push it over the mark for 327. Do you think? Like, I don't think Labour can form a minority government. You know, Conservatives do have the most seats, and, you know, look there. Okay, so 318 seats so far, 261. You know, Labour can form a minority government, but won't get anything through.
Well, they've surprised us by getting this amount of.
They have surprised us by
seats.
getting this amount.
So
but-
you never know what they could do.
yeah, but they can't get anything through. You know, the whole point of so the whole point of having majority, you know, so 325 is exactly half. 326 is having the majority, you know, to pass bills through. Labour will not be able to pass anything through. Yeah, they could go into coalition with SNP, but that gets them a few seats off the 300 mark.
That's not going to be
But do you reckon the prospect of Labour asking each one of the other smaller parties, and the smaller parties actually be able to get a seat or get main seats in
so the
Parliament?
biggest party, after Labour and Conservative is SNP, and they've got so you're looking at 35 seats. That takes it up to just short of 300. But then you've got to add on Lib Dem, 12 seats. It's only 312, and then Green Party another one, DUP.
They will literally need
Yeah.
the rest of the parties to like.
A Conservative minority, a Labour minority government is only like a little probability. If all else fails, that Conservative, can't actually form a coalition government.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, I'm sure Theresa May's already been on the phone to, the Lib Dem, leader, and spoken and said, what do you think? Your thoughts on this? Because people always change their opinion when they're put down to it.
Yeah, especially when the temptation for actually being back in power is there. I'm sure they might. change their minds.
And he might, and I think Nick Clegg, said throughout the 2010, elections that no, we won't go into coalition, but put down to it, and the possibility being there, he might turn around and be like, but then you have got the Irish parties might just come in and be like, no, let's just make this a bit. The Northern Irish parties might come in and say, let's just make this a bit easier and just get on with it.
A lot of people dislike Nick Clegg, but do you reckon it's a fair judgment of them to dislike him, or do you reckon he did good whilst he was in with the Tories? Because a lot of people don't like what the Tories did whilst they were in coalition.
I think generally Nick Clegg is quite an amazing, not necessarily amazing, but a very good in a politician in the sense of he was direct. He wasn't outlandish. He wasn't extreme. He wasn't extreme left wing or extreme right wing. So you have to remember, Lib Dem tends to be a party in the middle and would sway side to side sometimes. And he David Cameron in that 2010 election was put in very difficult circumstances. And I felt like Nick Clegg, I feel like if Theresa May does ask, Lib Dem, let's form a coalition government, I don't think Lib Dem would decline it.
Yeah.
Because they haven't been put in that position. They probably haven't really thought about that position because polls have said Tories were going to get an 80-seat plus majority.
I thought when they put out their manifesto, I thought the Lib Dems were dead and gone. I didn't think many people would vote for it, but they completely proved me wrong there by getting, how many more seats was it than last year? Five more seats?
Lib Dem.
Yeah.
Well, last election, got 8 seats,
Yeah.
so plus 4 seats up.
I didn't think they'd get many seats because of their manifesto, but they've 100% proved me wrong there.
Yeah. News just in actually. May. So official word says May signals her intention to carry on despite losing her majority, while Jeremy Corbyn says he is ready to serve. Louise, what is your reaction on Jeremy Corbyn turning around and saying I'm ready to serve? What do you think Jeremy Corbyn is trying to imply?
Well,
there?
he's saying if she resigns, I'm here. If I don't know, it could have many meanings. It's Jeremy Corbyn.
Do you think Jeremy Corbyn is implying that if all else fails with a Conservative coalition, that his party is there ready to serve with maybe an SNP coalition
Yeah,
there, not the not even not having got the biggest party in the house there, but do have quite a big political impact in the sense of compared to the Conservative governments who are coming up just over 60 seats above them really, and 60 seats is also a lot of seats really. Now, what do you think in the sense of certain leaders having to resign? Do you think Nicola Sturgeon should resign? Do you think Jeremy Corbyn should resign? What do you think in the sense of resignations by
In
leaders?
terms of resignation, I don't think they should unless there's like a strong mass demand for them to resign. I feel like if there's not that, there's no reason for them to actually resign.
Yeah.
I've just got up here on Twitter that there's quite a lot of kind of firsts in terms of the election. For example, there's been more than 200 female MPs elected. Labour has gained 2 disabled MPs in Battersea and Sheffield Hallam. The first female Sikh MP has been elected in Birmingham. Many others, to be honest, quite a lot of just firsts. That's why it could stand out.
You okay? Now obviously, just waiting on, reaction from all the parties. Waiting for certain leaders to do their speeches. We don't really have a set time on what leaders are going to do their speeches, etc., etc. Do you reckon Jeremy Corbyn's waiting on a reaction from Theresa May on what she decides to do? Or do you think Theresa May is in discussions at the moment with, Northern Irish parties to see if she can form a coalition with them?
She very well could be. This morning I was watching, I was watching what was happening on the news, and they were all waiting at the front of number 10 to see what she does see when she goes in to number 10, but she went through the back door, so they had no idea what she was doing, and she came out the front, so she could have well be doing that straight away before the election.
Do you reckon? Obviously, we can't sit here and speculate, what parties do on the inside. But do you think, a few weeks ago she might have, started speaking to certain, smaller parties and saying, if worse comes to us, can we please form a coalition? Do you think she would have prepared herself like that, or do you think, she was a bit arrogant in the sense of, she thought she would have a clean sweep majority?
I can't speak for her, but. I don't know if do you reckon she was arrogant in the first place to call the entire thing, or do you reckon?
No, I don't think she was arrogant at all. I think she did it with full intent of the country having a democratic
leader.
Yeah, and deciding who they actually want to lead Brexit, because we'll come back to it again. Brexit is the only reason we are having this, and. So we have 648 out of 650 seats decided. Only waiting on 2 more.
The Cornwall ones have been voted because there was 2 main ones in Cornwall which hadn't been decided, and I think almost all of Cornwall has voted Conservative, which is
no change there really.
Yeah.
Well, apart from I believe Plymouth actually.
Yeah, Plymouth is Devon. And yeah, they voted Labour.
So if we have a quick look at Plymouth, and Plymouth has been a a Conservative. If we have a look at this one here, Plymouth, Sutton, and Devonport has gone Labour. Yeah. So in Plymouth and Sutton and Devonport, so Labour have 23,808 votes with a 53.4% lead. Now, a plus 16.7%, which is, again, is a massive swing there. So, again, one of, kind of the only constituencies in the southwest choosing Labour via Bristol, which is obviously a big city, which was kind of, I think, predicted bound to go Labour, even with the last election as well, voted to go Labour. Now, do you think, quite a lot of people have changed their political opinion based on, the last election with what's happened?
Bristol or Bath?
Just, generally in the southwest.
I feel like they most likely have, compared to the last election. I feel like a lot of them have changed it all. I know of quite a few people in Bath particularly who, as they knew that it was extremely hard to near impossible for Labour to get in, because so many little people voting for Labour, quite a lot of people have voted Lib Dem as quite a gamble kind of strategic vote, just to kind of prevent.
But the thing is, people have said, a Lib Dem strategic vote, to get the Tories out. But we don't know. It could be, a possibility that Lib Dem do form a coalition government with the Tories.
In which it could work negatively against.
Which backlashes on everyone who was like, let's strategic vote.
I feel like quite a lot of people who have done that have just pretty much, they've not put a lot of kind of thought to the future for it. They've pretty much just thought, but if I do this, it's not true.
But then if it does work in the right way for them, it was a big decision to choose, because
it's a massive gamble.
But getting Lib Dem in Bath instead of getting Conservative in, that's taken one of their seats away. And how far away were they from the majority vote? It was 7 seats, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's a big one seat. Bath is a big seat for them to not get. And for the Liberal Democrats to win.
Yeah, at the moment, so seats stand at 318 for Conservatives. So again, just fractionally off there. A majority government, and
so the people strategically voting, in fact, have they've done their job really.
But
with Bath, is one of those however many Conservative needed.
Yeah.
The one strategic vote at the moment has worked for the people who wanted to vote Labour.
Yeah.
But for the people but if it ends up being Conservative Lib Dem, which me personally I can't see happening, it will then work against them.
Okay, so do you think, strategic voting, so you think overall, if Lib Dem, do to decide to go into a coalition with the Conservative Party, do you think that has actually worked out?
Not if they go into a coalition with Conservatives. It's not worked out for them, but it's.
Do you think there's a possibility Lib Dems could, decide, because, they haven't actually been put in the position, do you think it is a possibility they could?
Yeah, it is a possibility, because once the Lib Dems get their sights on power, or a slight bit of power, then they probably will swing their vote. Then I was saying that how it might work negatively, because then Conservative could still be in. But they could then say that the Liberal Democrats could be holding the Conservatives back from a lot of the changes that they wanted to make, which they didn't agree with in the first place. So it could still work out perfectly, fine for them, or better than they would have got if they voted Labour.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously, the time we've just gone past 10 o'clock, still no sign of Theresa May coming out and giving a verdict. I reckon it's taking a lot of time, more than usual, because, obviously, Theresa May might be on the phone to, God knows who, and, please form a coalition government with me, and all else fails, it might turn out that Labour do form a minority government, which wouldn't really work in their favour, because, well, all Conservative could form a minority government.
I would say it would surprise me if they formed a minority one, but they've already surprised me getting how much they've got, which is brilliant for them.
But I think we've kind of seen like a slow increase. So when polls first opened, when the snap election was announced, Labour like massively behind Conservative in polls, but then have got a massive surge and a massive increase. Just being a few points off as prediction polls. Yesterday, I think looking at prediction polls yesterday, I remember. Well, I've got one up here on my iPad, and I think it was literally like it was like less than 3 points off, which is absolutely amazing for
Which
for
at
him.
the start they were like 25, 30 points off, weren't they?
Yeah, so actually, predictions here. This is Nowcast, one of the top predictions. Said that Labour would only get 219 seats. Sat here with 261. It goes to show, even with Brexit, even with the American elections, that prediction polls mean nothing.
No.
And over the last few years, we've there was a few years where they were really, really proved, but they're not really anymore, are they?
Going back to the young voters, 18 to 24, I have some stats. In the 2001, 2005, 2010 and 2015 election, the turnout was around 40%. In this election was 72%. And many people are thanking, in a way, Labour for inspiring young people to go and vote. I think this election has had everything, to be honest, in terms of it's got everyone involved, because a few years back, I mean, not many people cared about politics or didn't know much about it, but now I see more people more interested. I mean, myself, if you had to ask me about politics 2 years, 3 years ago, I wouldn't be able to answer any questions about politics, but now I obviously gained more interest, and I think that's a really well done to obviously Labour, Conservative, and trying to get more young people to vote.
Without that, what did you say the percentage increase was? How many more than last time?
More than 30%.
More than 30%. Without those 30%, I think Conservative would have won.
Do you think, though, in the sense of hearing a lot of from I've had I've been speaking to my family members and just general people at where I work and stuff, and a lot of them have turned around and said I don't feel like young people haven't lived in the world. They haven't paid much taxes. They haven't experienced the stuff we have over the years. And the economic crash that, put it bluntly, Labour did cause under Blair and Brown governments. So I think Jeremy Corbyn's tactics has been get the young people voting, which actually is a really good thing, but necessarily a bad thing in the sense of young people might just be saying free stuff here, free stuff there, rather than actually looking at a few years down the line, it may affect our economy massively, but no one knows until it's actually done.
Yeah.
But the people who vote, if younger people, those are the people who in a couple of years it's going to affect the most. So I think if young people are voting out, means they're finally taking a grasp on their future and the future of this country, which hasn't happened before. They haven't been interested in everything, and a lot of people have been tweeting on Facebook, and you see it everywhere now. A lot of young people are getting involved.
I think last year's referendum had a lot to do with this turnout. I think.
Do you think? So do you think, you know, it was a
Yeah.
lot of, so for example, you have two, you know, polar opposites, Labour pushing for a soft Brexit and Theresa May wanting to go in, thrash the whip with a really hard Brexit. Pictures just coming in now, actually, obviously we can't show you, but Theresa May has left Conservative headquarters and looks like she is on her way to Downing Street. Well, she is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom at the moment. Maybe subject to change though, and we'll know in a few hours. You are here on the Bar Studio School YouTube channel on a night of controversy and surprise, with a hung parliament being oppressive, Conservatives just becoming a few seats short of a majority. Obviously not what the polls decided, but obviously Theresa May, you know, maybe worrying Frank, you know, a lot at the moment about who is she going to form a coalition with, you know, after, you know, Lib Dem saying we will not go into coalition with you, and Theresa May possibly having to look further afield to Northern Irish parties. Now, let's move on to some more statistics from the last election. So obviously, you know, the last election, 2015, David Cameron in charge, you know, versus Ed Miliband of the Labour Party. Conservative overall getting 334,576 votes. While Labour suffering, you know, quite big in the sense of, you know, compared to this election, 9,347,304 votes. Up 1.5% though on the 2010 election, while Tory were only up 0.8. So, you know, you could look at those statistics and say, you know, Labour have been on the rise over the last few years and actually, you know, suffered, you know, quite a lot of losses in the 2010 election, obviously, but, you know, Conservative not gaining enough for, you know, for them to sweep in and take it.
With figures like that, let's say the 11 million and then the 9 million, if it depending on what constituencies in what constituencies those votes are in, Labour could have well won that with 2 million less votes. So I don't believe in the current voting system we've got. I think it's an unfair and it's not actually representative of everyone. This isn't just because of my own views, but this is just because I don't believe that it works. Even if the political party I don't support gets in, I just don't think it actually represents what people would believe. Do you share the same opinion with me?
Yeah, I feel like so you know, there's been surprises, you know, throughout this, you know, the exit poll last night saying, you know, Tories will come short of a majority, and, you know, Labour coming in and actually getting a massive surge, you know, which actually was not expected from the start of the snap election call. You know, when the snap election was called, you know, Theresa May was singing tactically, you know, Jeremy Corbyn's very low in the polls at the moment, and suddenly Jeremy Corbyn came out with this massive drive, driving young voters, you know, driving what the public may necessarily want to hear, but, you know, a lot of, you know, Theresa May disagree and say, you know, not what the country needs.
Yeah. I just have another question. Do you think the current voting system we've got is an actual good representation of what people want?
Well, there's been like loads of controversy obviously around this, and, you know, I knew that it was obviously going to be questioned, you know, after the results from tonight. It's really hard to do it because, you know, the whole point of Parliament is, you know, the government is formed by whoever the people vote in local constituencies. You know, anyone can stand for a party theoretically in a local constituency, and, you know, be elected and, you know, represent a certain party. And, you know, the whole point is so the majority is there. You know that magical figure of 326. You know, that magic number every party wants to get is very important because, like, just having 326. You know, you have got the majority of that, even though it's by one person. You have got the majority of the House to push your bills through and stuff. And it's very hard to change. You know, people have suggested why not have two options on the ballot paper, have prime ministers that aren't necessarily with a party, and, you know, you select your local representative. But, you know, again, it's very hard to change. Let's go around the table. Sam, what would you do? What do you think? What would you change if you could? You know,
there was proposed a while ago. I don't know the exact year, but there was a vote between people about this new polling system. It was I can't remember the name of it, but it's where you give your first choice, your second choice, and your third choice, and then it gives you the second option. I can't explain how it works, but it was a lot more representative, and the media for some reason was slamming that idea quite a bit and putting the idea down. I believe if we had that actually we actually had that idea in check, then we'd have a lot more of a representative figures and an actual representative government. And I try and campaign for if I was in a position of, let's say, Jeremy Corbyn or Theresa May, I would want to try and get that in Parliament again.
Okay. So obviously, you know, like we've spoken about, you know, huge shock, and you know, I think the exit poll. So I was there watching, you know, obviously last night the exit poll came in on BBC, you know, saying, you know, Conservative. You know, the first thing that flashes up is Conservative will be the biggest party, and then a few moments later it come up with, you know, predicted, you know, only 316. Obviously, Conservatives have now passed that with, you know, so obviously the exit poll changes overnight. Now the forecast is 319. Conservatives are on 318. With only, if I just double check, one seat left to go. So it mostly looks like Conservatives, you know, will get, you know, what the forecast says, and actually, you know, goes to show the whole algorithm of, you know, exit poll actually does work, even though, you know, people may not have agreed with it, but it does go to show it does work. Do you think, Luis?
It works, in my opinion. I mean, shouldn't change what works. That's my view. I mean, many people, obviously, you can't get everyone happy, but
It does work, but do you believe that that I think it was in the last election, I'm going to get these figures a bit wrong here, but I think it was UKIP got 1 million votes, but they got one seat, whereas Liberal Democrats got a couple of 100,000, and they got 7 seats. Was it 7 seats last election, or was it 8?
8.
8.
Yeah.
They got 8 seats. Is that fair?
I mean,
But then again, it's also a difficult one because, you know, you want a government, you know, the whole point of having a democratic government is you want the people, you know, you want the government of the majority of people have decided to vote, hence why Theresa May will probably end up running a hung parliament, you know, as much as people don't like it, but that's what people have voted at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's just my point here is that the Liberal Democrats last year would have ended up with a lot more voice actually in Parliament, because per seat you obviously get more people, more voice in the actual Houses of Parliament. But with UKIP, they got over 1 million votes, a lot more votes than the Liberal Democrats, but they got 1 seat. Whereas the Liberal Democrats got a lot less than UKIP. I think it was Liberal Democrats.
Well, yeah.
And then they got more of a voice.
Well, yeah. Looking at your point here, actually, so statistics here said, you know, UKIP with 1.8% and Green with 1.6%, but yet Green are the one who have the 1 MP with.
Yep.
You know, UKIP have none, so I do understand your point, but then it's very hard to change about how it works.
It is hard to change, and I said this earlier. There was a different voting system which was proposed a while ago, and the media slammed it a lot, which got people not actually wanting it. So I think it was 60% of people voted for not to introduce it, and it in my opinion, it was a good voting system. You'd have to research it because I don't have the actual I don't have for you how it would work, but it was a lot more representative of what people actually thought.
well, as you said, the media, you said earlier, the media, slamming it, like the media has a lot of influence.
It does have a lot of influence.
So,
So do you reckon it's with the media? Do you reckon it's right that, let's say, there's a lot of newspapers who are very much conservative in this election? Did you reckon that was right? Do you reckon that's
I mean,
correct for them to do?
I don't think it's correct to have. I mean, you can have a view, yeah, as a newspaper, but like
So
you still have to be like a bit neutral, I
yes,
guess.
So you don't reckon it's right to actually push the editor's opinions onto the public? You reckon
No.
it should be neutral?
It should be like you can, yeah, show you your view, like, oh yeah, this and that, but up to a limit.
Yep.
Like not extreme, like it has
So you
been.
reckon they are allowed? They should be allowed to slightly push their opinions on the public, but it shouldn't. But they shouldn't do it too much. Like in the Sun yesterday, they had a picture of Jeremy Corbyn in a bin.
Like that's
Yeah.
just extreme.
But
extreme.
I was reading a thing actually, you know, that actually quite a lot of, you know, news companies are run by, you know, quite wealthy billionaires that tend to vote Conservative, and they know for a fact that, you know, their views will have a lot of impact in the sense of, so for example, people might have seen that and thought, oh, Corbyn, Corbyn,
Yeah.
get him out, and may have actually turned around and said that actually, do have a lot of influence. And yeah, it is biased, don't get me wrong, it is biased and it shouldn't be allowed, but at the end of the day it's happening. But like we've seen tonight, it hasn't been proved. People, more and more people are coming understanding, that the media does tend to be biased.
Do you reckon if the media wasn't biased, there'd be more of a Labour vote, more people voting Labour? Or do you
Oof.
reckon it would stay the same?
I reckon it would be in the Conservatives' favours, in the fact, a lot of people saw that and actually got frustrated by it and thought it was immature. And actually, quite a lot of people do get angry by newspapers such as the Sun.
The Sun is.
And just thought, nah, like it's really, really unfair actually.
So with your view there, which I've just listened to and I actually agree with, I wasn't really thinking of that before. I reckon they might balanced out, and this might just be a general representative without any influence at all. Maybe there's people here voting out of frustration, and there's people voting out of being influenced by the media, so the people frustrated then don't vote Conservative, and the people who are influenced vote Conservative, and it works out. Do you reckon it could just?
I don't know. I'm just like, I think everything, up in the air, I think the whole country is in a bit of confusion by what's actually happening, because there's all these, like, Labour, minority government, Conservative, not being able to, when, you look at the basics, and, I think a lot of, Labour people, that are hearing, because, people wanted this, election to be about stability, and, the Conservatives, slogan for most of it being strong and stable haven't exactly proven that tonight. And I think a lot of people about this. Theresa May may decide, oh yeah, I'm going to stay, because people are kind of fed up with all this unrest. The Scottish referendum 2015, election in 2015, some sort of stability. David Cameron then announced this election in referendum in 2016, and then Theresa May come out and said, we're not going to do a snap election, we're not going to snap election, no election, this is going to be the people that see it through, and then deciding at the end of the day, actually no, well, we are going to we're going to have a snap election, and it hasn't worked in her favour, but I can see why she's done it, and I feel like she sometimes gets a bit of slack when, and actually looking at this, I can see why she wanted to do it.
Yep.
It hasn't worked in her favour, no, but wouldn't you rather, she sat here, this is how we're going to do Brexit, you haven't elected me, this is how we're going to do Brexit, and, a lot of people may have, turned around and be like, well, actually, no. So I think she has done the right thing, and, they called this election.
Yeah. No, I do believe that as well. I think it's a good thing that she actually went out and gave the people the choice of who's leading us out of the European Union, because that's what it's really about, this election. Who's going to be leading us out of the European Union? Wasn't really mainly about anything other. Well, it was obviously, it's about who's leading our country. But I think the main thing she called this for is that the actual people could choose what politician is leading us out of Europe.
Breaking news, Justin, sorry to cut you short there, Sam.
No.
Breaking news, Justin, it is reported Theresa May will visit Buckingham Palace at 12:30 to seek permission to form a UK government despite losing her Commons majority. That's all we have at the moment. So the DUP chairman has said we will work in best interest of Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. And it hasn't officially said, but she think by looking at this, it looks like Theresa May has got full support of the DUP party. DUP party, obviously being the Democratic Unionist Party based in Northern Ireland, have won 10 seats. Conservatives obviously falling just short there with 318 seats. Obviously, getting the DUP on a coalition will push that to 328, which means Conservatives will hold overall majority, but it will be a hung parliament. So obviously quite a lot of uncertainty, but obviously these are just speculations and these are rumours, but it looks like Theresa May has got her coalition sorted and is going to ask, Her Majesty the Queen for opinions to, not opinions, but permission, because obviously she has to start a new government. What's everyone's reactions to this?
Expected.
Expected?
I thought it was fine.
And do you think, she's tried to work as fast as she can to get this done, Zoe?
Yeah.
Do you think, and especially as well, I reckon, maybe a few weeks back when she called the snap election, if, worst comes to worst with this, I do have, if worst comes to worst, and probably try to sort out some kind of deal with DUP, if worse come to worse, and she did have a coalition government. So obviously that an ongoing story. Obviously, we won't be here when she does visit there. But again, an interesting government. And by the looks of things, it looks like Theresa May she is the largest party. The Conservatives are the largest party. And look like for now that they are going to perform a coalition government with the DUP party, which is actually very interesting. Obviously, a Northern Irish-based party. We don't really know much about them. I'm not going to lie, I haven't really, because it's quite unexpected. I come in here, having listened to, I planned this, looking at prediction polls of Conservative, sweeping with a massive majority, but obviously, not getting that, but. I obviously haven't really heard much about them. I think we should be. I think they're open to proposition, and maybe a lot of parties would be happy. I think maybe the DUP especially might be happy with a coalition because it might mean their voice gets heard.
Yeah, because I've not actually heard much about the DUP before.
Well,
this
but
election.
even if like Lib Dem, for example, formed a majority, a coalition government. They might have actually got their. Because Lib Dems strive for a lot of and have a lot in their manifesto. Legalizing weed, for example. So I think a lot of people have turned around and been like, I've lost my words. A lot of people have turned around and said like maybe a coalition could be a good thing because you're having two parties there, possibly. Okay, so obviously, speculation there. That's obviously an ongoing story. Louise, do you have anything else on how this may impact, general things in the country, like taxes in, like, the education system or the NHS or maybe even sport, for example? Is there anything there, how this may affect, the rest of the country at all?
Well, sports, I can tell you, Jeremy Corbyn wanted to get 5% of the income of like the biggest football clubs in the country.
A lot of Jeremy Corbyn's interests were in football. I saw a graph. I don't know if you saw it, but it was showing what Jeremy Corbyn or what Labour would do for football in general. And I think there was 4 different policies in there compared to.
That's the thing. I supported him. Like, it was really good because he was planning getting 5% of every club.
Yeah, it was
obviously every club with like a decent income,
yep.
And spend it on like making new football pitches, promoting more.
5% of, I think it was TV rights.
TV rights.
And
that's the one.
Putting it into grassroots football.
Yeah. That's, I mean, I haven't. That's really good. If you take money out of football clubs to do good things, I support it. I fully support that.
Yep.
And he's been talking with the Copa 90 guys. Big Arsenal fan, shame. But yeah, it's been good.
So do you think a leader's certain a leader of particular parties their certain position on for example football could actually have a massive impact on whether that community tries to wants them to be in power
Definitely.
or not?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because well, let's say football, for example, because this is what we're using. There's in England, because it's our national sport, there's a massive interest in it. We could also say rugby. There's a massive interest in rugby in England as well.
And cricket.
And cricket. But I think politicians should put a lot more focus into actual sport.
Yeah.
Because if a lot of people focused on sport, I think you said this, a lot more people would probably look at that party. That's because it's something that could affect them. For example, me. I quite like things like I like Sunday League. I like all of our grassroots football. So when Jeremy Corbyn said that he'd put 5% of TV rights from Premier League football into grassroots football, it rang alarm bells.
And like you need like, what you see like, political parties need to promote like not just like football, take money off TV rights and make this and that. Like they need to actually promote sports. Like in school, in your spare time, because we are getting like each year we get figures like, oh yeah, more kids are getting obese, are getting fatter and stuff, and if you promote sports in schools and PE lessons instead of having kids like saying, oh I don't have my kit, like just to get out of it and not do anything, in PE. Like, you need to actually promote sport in schools everywhere. Like,
I think with this as well, I think they need to not too much, but they're starting to shy away from competitiveness in sport. I think competitiveness can be a good thing because it can lead to more, let's say, life skills as well in your future life, your career, but the government and other schools are starting to shy away from it, try and make it as little competitive.
But maybe the problem is this election has been more not necessarily about like welfare issues. Well, not in the sense, so it hasn't been like about massive social issues going on. It's been more about national issues going on. Like the NHS, being in crisis, Brexit, and
education,
And this election has actually been like campaigning from most parties that's been described as dirty. Do you think there has been dirty campaigning, Zoe? From every party, not just one particular party, but most of the parties. Do you think there's been dirty campaigning?
Maybe a little bit from every single party, because no politician is completely clean. They all sort of are a bit.
Well, I mean, Theresa May, she said the naughtiest thing she's done is run through a wheat field.
Oh, damn.
I don't know.
Oh.
She needs to be careful with them.
But yeah, carry on from your point.
Yeah, they're all sort of corrupt. Let's say that none of them are very.
Well, not sort of. They're all corrupt.
They're all corrupt. So really.
When you say corrupt, in what kind of sense do you think they're corrupt?
Well, you saw Theresa May living in a Jaguar, I think it was. Who pays for that? Your mum, his dad, whatever.
That's true.
They all pay for that, and she was living the Conservative headquarters.
Okay, but then again, so we're now gonna move across the pond, so to speak, for about it. With the for the US president's movements, for example, yeah, he's the leader of the free world, but do you not think having a protective limo that costs a couple £1 million, Bulletproof has its own blood supply in there, oxygen supply, the car can run without like tires, for example, engine encased in how many like millimeters thick, worth of bulletproof
all the
steel.
Americans pay for that in their taxes.
Exactly.
The American government's even more corrupt than this government, but all of them are corrupt.
But people say on a fancy Jaguar, but that Jaguar is most likely bulletproofed. In circumstances today, Theresa May is probably under, as I've seen actually, a lot of people like dislike her. Not very many people that really dislike Corbyn, but like a lot of really
a
like.
lot of people dislike Corbyn. I've seen a lot because
So many people dislike
my
Corbyn.
Facebook is rammed with people calling him IRA, anti-British.
Okay, but people, you said about the Jaguar, like money being spent on her Jaguar, I believe money. So it's not. So I would understand if I sat here, streaming to the Americans. She's got her own like private jumbo jet, got her own like 3 helicopters she flies with all the time. And goes from massive convoys through the country. But she doesn't. She uses like a small British Airways plane when going on foreign trips. And she uses a Jaguar, to just get around London. Obviously, the Prime Minister's going to travel around in like a 1996 Citroen, is she?
Yeah, they should.
Obviously,
You
I'm not.
imagine?
But I'm not saying that obviously, but they need a bit of protection. But like obviously,
That is money that people are working for, that it's sort of going towards that.
I feel like they should have some sort of protection, but when you have like the amount of protection, for example, Donald Trump, like an oxygen supply in his car,
Theresa May,
like,
Theresa May,
and all that.
compared to other world leaders, isn't actually that well protected. I don't know because there could be secret things in place, but she's not actually a huge effect. Like if you look at actually in America, for example, there's quite a lot of gun violence, for example. But if you look here in the UK, there's like barely any. So.
I think that's due to the fact that they sell firearms. We don't.
Yeah. It's legal over there, but I do think I do believe in the fact so that what Theresa, I'd understand if you guys was at it, she's got a private limousine that's got like jetpacks
Oh, no, I'm
in the
not
back
saying
of
that.
it.
I'm just saying that it's corrupt. The government is corrupt. Like, I can guarantee if you were to go through things, you'd see that there's millions of pounds that are like
but that's not.
unexplained stuff. It's corrupt.
Oh, well, like for example, there was this massive scandal about David Cameron's wife, spending all these thousands of pounds, on her outfits.
Yeah.
But that's not just here. It's here in France,
Yeah,
in Spain.
the entire, like, world
people could say,
government.
as a world leader, you've got to keep up like a certain status about yourself, and actually, you know, a first lady, you know, a wife of a prime minister, you know, a wife of a president, a wife, you know, a king, for example, has to keep up like a certain status. Like, you know, you wouldn't be happy if Theresa May, you know, turned up for a speech wearing Adidas
I
tracky
would.
bottoms.
Honestly,
would.
I'd be there like, God.
Like I'll
God.
feel honestly, I'll feel identified with
Yeah.
her when Adidas strap.
I think they like.
I mean,
they're here for
I
the
would
people.
love that.
They're meant to be here for the people, to help
So
the
you
people,
think,
but they're not like us.
You should turn up in, you know, Adidas slides with
I
matching
think
socks.
so. Wait, if it
Full of
was slides,
matching-
no,
I'd
not
fully
the
rate
slides,
that.
Like-
not the
Fully rate
slides,
that.
but
Like-
anything else.
Okay,
They
maybe
say
we're talking a bit extreme.
Jeremy Corbyn is an Arsenal fan. He goes to every single home game, from what they heard.
But
And-
then you
and-
also have the thing, you know, that doesn't make him a good. That doesn't
Yeah,
define
yeah,
him
but
as
like,
a leader.
yeah,
Makes
but
more
like the
close to the
majority of the
That's what I mean.
politicians.
Like you wouldn't trust if you were just in the street, say, and like someone came up to you and was like, I don't know where I'm going with this. No, I
Just
mean
go
like
with it, just go
you
with it.
just trust people who are like you more, and
Corbyn's
like
a lot more like you can relate to him more.
Yeah,
exactly, and like
That's
with
why
all of
people like
them,
him.
But
they
pe-
try
pe-
to be
people-
like, oh, we understand what you want, we're going to give you what you want, but they.
There's this massive thing, you know, in Parliament at the moment about like how you know, people who are running the country, you know, can't relate to like the normal working class citizen. Well, I totally understand, but you know, people are acting like, you know, Corbyn's coming from a very unprivileged background. You know, the kid went to private school just like Theresa May. And actually, I do agree with you. There needs to be more like politics needs to be, you know, on offer to everyone. Like everyone, you know, should have the chance to go to the highest universities to study politics, and you know, the opportunity to become, you know, an MP, for example, or the opportunity to become, you know, but obviously we're still getting rid of the stereotypes. Like Niall said earlier, you know, we've had over 200 female MPs elected, and like how many disabled MPs elected?
There were 2 disabled MPs. In
Two. So you know, we're already breaking down barriers and, you know, stereotypes there, and actually, and I do think Jeremy Corbyn can be, you know, ahead of a movement, you know, that says actually, you know, anyone can get into politics if they have the power, you know, if they have the passion to do it and the fire in their bellies to do it. So
I think with Jeremy Corbyn, we were talking earlier about it being refreshing. I think with Jeremy Corbyn, it's refreshing to have someone who's not been to private school, who's
he has
Yeah,
been to private school.
was he?
Yeah, he was
Well,
private
okay,
education.
he was in public education for, well, he had been to public education.
Yeah, well, no, he has, you know, he has experience, and, you know,
Yeah.
and actually the man, you know, I would say, you know, is more down to earth than Theresa May, for example. I can totally understand your point on that, but you know, but also I this, you know, be a bit controversial what I'm about to say, but
Oh.
but surely, for example, I can't sit here and say I'd be able to do a good job as prime minister. Or can any
I
of
think
you?
you would.
I don't think any of us could.
Yeah,
To be
because
hon-
you
nah.
know you don't know the, you know, we see all this stuff, but you don't know the pressures, you know, going on behind the scene. You know, there's loads of top secret stuff that can be going on, like pressures, you know, all these plots and stuff like that. And like people say, oh yeah, I could do that job. Well, I would like to see people try do that job, because you know, Theresa May, you know, bless, like all the leaders, for example, they've been up all night, all day yesterday, all night, haven't only had what, half an hour sleep or so while travelling, you know, to their constituencies and back to London again. I feel like a lot of people should appreciate, you know,
Yeah.
politicians
Yeah,
more.
I think they
But
they
they-
do that, but I think like I don't know.
They do this once every
Yeah,
few years.
it's not that big.
mean-
Like there are people around up and down the country who work like shifts like this every night nearly.
Yeah.
People who work their butts off to make minimum wage, something that they're arguing over, and they're talking about how
But-
they think they should.
But also, like, I think, you know, I believe, you know, the government's also done like, kind of a decent job as well on actually sorting out that minimum wage as well. Like, it is, you know,
Yeah.
at quite substantial levels.
All the people behind the scenes, the people we don't see, the people we don't get to talk about, the people that are like all of them, they deserve a lot of credit.
Yeah.
And
being especially if you're like, let's say, a public figure or someone running for running for your local constituency, there's a lot of pressure on you because people are judging you as a person or as with your policies. They're not just judging your policies, they judge you, they judge what you say. This isn't correct, this is not correct, but they sometimes even judge out what you look like. It's a lot more pressure than people actually.
do you think, okay, so, you know, when Jeremy Corbyn was first elected Labour leader, it's the first time I ever heard of him, actually. You know, and I remember reading a news article that just described him as a rogue rat in politics. Not obviously, you know, rat in the bad sense, obviously, you know, rat in the sense of, like, he was like, a bit unexpected, really.
Yeah.
Do you think that, so when he first came into power, you know, he didn't like wore a suit with, like, didn't really wear like a proper suit with no tie. I reportedly, you know, on multiple occasions didn't sing the national anthem. Do you think, you know, he is like, obviously, the government is formed under the Queen, and a lot of people are saying, we don't need the royal family anymore. What's everyone's, opinion on like people wanting to abolish the?
Well, with what you're saying there, with him saying that he doesn't agree with the royal family and things like that, I think it's good that he's actually said that, because it's standing up for what he actually believes in, instead of shying away from it and not speaking out. I think it's good that he's actually said it, so people can see that he's real. Is what he's saying. But I think with the Queen, I think there's a lot of, or with the Queen and the royal family, people saying we should get rid of it. I think there's multiple different arguments for both sides. For example, it's using up a lot of the council's money. People call them benefit scroungers and things like that. Yeah, it's using a lot of money. I think it also brings money to the country.
There was statistics brought out that the average taxpayer pays 35p towards the royal family every year. 35p every year.
Well, how many inhabitants does it also?
But then you also like you just said, Sam. Actually, the reverse side of actually the tourism and the economic benefits the royal family brings in probably outweighs that by millions and millions of pounds.
That's true.
Like, for example, people could say abolish the monarchy. It's just a waste of taxpayers' money. And actually, if you look at it, 35p per taxpayer isn't substantial to how much people tax actually pay.
You're missing out on a flump. It's not really that much.
Exactly, and actually for what it brings in, people. I know people who've become, heard stories of people coming, especially to the UK, just to see, about the royal family, go to Buckingham Palace and stuff. And I do, and I'm a strong believer, that actually, the royal family, they don't hold any political power anymore. But they're still like, the government is formed in Her Majesty's name.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. As I said, you're missing out on a flump. But then people could also argue back, saying that 35p, which is everyone's paying. I'm going to go back to using the NHS as an example. Again, I use this a lot. But that 35p, if everyone paid 35p towards the NHS instead of the royal family, then the NHS would be a lot more funded.
The royal family have a lot of
Or
money
maybe
anyway.
in terms of paying 15p towards the royal family and 20p towards it.
But then again, in the sense of you do, I can't see it happening anytime soon. I'm not gonna lie, like the British family has like support from. I've never really met someone who's gone, I've met one person, but who gone abolish the monarchy, don't like the Queen and stuff. Because at the end of the day, the Queen holds no political power. She can't turn around and be like, no, I'm not signing this bill. She has to constitutionally.
Sorry to cut you short. We have breaking news from the UKIP leadership.
Oh yeah, UKIP
Paul, that's
leaders
also
running.
signed.
Let's actually take a listen to this speech.
Has been, what is the relevance of UKIP now? Well, I contend, even after the difficult night last night, that UKIP is more relevant than it ever was. This is because UKIP are, more now than ever after last night's result, the guard dogs of Brexit. And the Prime Minister, and I suspect it will be a Tory, must know that if they begin to backtrack or barter things away, then they must know they will be punished at the ballot box. And that will only happen if UKIP is electorally viable and strong. We are, in effect, the country's insurance policy on Brexit. UKIP has also proved its relevance by leading the agenda in many ways in this election. To give you one example, we were the first to talk about the greater need for integration and the threats posed to our people from the growing cancer of Islamist extremism in our midst. Unfortunately, the recent attacks in Manchester and London have proved we were correct. I would also argue, on many other issues, we have led and others have followed. We put down a manifesto that not only highlighted many of the issues we now face, but came up with common sense remedies. Indeed, I called it a manifesto that was a decade ahead of its time. And I am more confident now than ever that many of our proposals in the 2017 manifesto will either be government policy or adopted by the establishment parties before the next general election. I believe in the long term, some of our policy proposals are inevitable, such as an English Parliament or a full face coverings ban. I am proud to have stood on a platform of policies that included getting immigration under control, slashing the bloated foreign aid budget, reversing the cuts to our police force and increasing the size of our armed forces. I contend that if UKIP is to prosper, it must continue to be the outriders of British politics. The party that leads the debate and does not follow. The party that is not hamstrung by political correctness and therefore straight talks and says what everybody else is thinking. If UKIP sticks to these principles, then I believe it will flourish in future years. Indeed, I even predict, after last night, that if things go the way I expect, then UKIP could, in 18 months' time, be bigger in terms of poll ratings and members than it ever has been before. However, it will not be with me as its leader. I am standing down today as the leader of UKIP with immediate effect. This will allow the party to have a new leader in place by the conference in September. And at the annual conference in Torquay, the new rebranded UKIP must be launched and a new era must begin with a new leader. This will be an exciting time for all of us who love our party. I have to admit that I never envisaged that I would lead the party into 3 by-elections and a general election in the space of 6 hectic months. I wanted at least a year of calm to rebrand and rebuild the party structures so we were ready for the electoral battles ahead. But alas,
Nuttall is standing down as
so obviously huge, well, not really a surprise there due to UKIP's performance overnight. Niall, what are your opinions on UKIP leader obviously resigning there?
I don't really know, to be honest. I'm not going to try.
Do you think, it's quite fair of him to resign, given UKIP's, the results
I
last
feel
night?
like, given compared to last time, they obviously have far less votes compared to last.
Well, they've got none. They've got no seats.
They've got 0 seats compared to last time.
But obviously last time they were pledging for that referendum to leave the EU. Now they have nothing no talking points at all. So it's not really surprising they got no seats. And also that makes it a lot easier now. It makes it more in shape for Nigel Farage to return to the UKIP leadership.
I was watching
So,
watching the news earlier.
while we're on the point of Nigel, sorry to interrupt you there,
Yeah,
Sam.
it's about Nigel.
On the point of Nigel Farage, there, do you think he will might slide back in there as UKIP leader?
Well, I was just saying on the news earlier, there was an interview with Nigel Farage, and he was and the person interviewing him was saying how UKIP's pretty much done terrible since Nigel Farage left. So in fact, it might be in UKIP's best interest to retrieve him or get him back. If not, they need someone similar and someone definitely who's going to do better than was his name Paul Nuttall?
Yeah.
Paul Nuttall did.
Okay, so obviously, well, not really surprising revelations there with the UKIP leader resigning, given UKIP's performance last night. But an interesting statistic there, UKIP actually had more votes generally across the country last night than Green Party. The Green Party are the one with the 1 MP, with UKIP with 0.
This is what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, so do you think, obviously, we've already spoken about, obviously changing, the way people vote and how it's voted. Do you think people should, should have, I've kind of lost for words here. Do you I've totally forgotten my point here. I don't really know where I'm taking this. Well, actually, moving on. Actually, we'll move on there. Obviously, the UKIP leader signing, and obviously Nigel Farage maybe go back in. Obviously, he is the founding father of the party. But to be fair on Nigel Farage, he is very extreme and sometimes low-key racist.
Low-key.
Low-key
racist.
racist.
A little bit.
Just smart.
Can't be racist. His wife's German.
You're joking. Is she actually?
He does have a
Of
well
course she is.
German
Like
wife.
Donald Trump
well,
in his
Very
immigrant
sorry
wife.
to see Paul Nuttall stepping down, he said.
Yeah.
Very sorry.
But
Yeah.
he says
Yeah,
he's
sure
very
is.
sorry, but he's like
can't
going to
be
come
fighting
back in again.
them.
Okay, so obviously we know now jumping across a little bit of the way. Obviously America last year electing President good old Donald Trump as their leader of the free world, so to put it. What do you think, now, what do you think, the US politics reaction is to this?
Well, in terms of this, Bernie Sanders has obviously said that people are revolting against austerity, apparently, and well, he's delighted to see Labour do so well, to be honest. He said, his quote from him, "All over the world, people are rising up against austerity and massive levels of income and wealth inequality. People in the UK, the US, and elsewhere want governments that represent all the people, not just the 1%.
Which news agency published that one?
This is on, the Independent.
Okay, so obviously, the Independent they're publishing. But it was known from the start that Bernie, I would call Bernie Sanders, the Corbyn American equivalent. Would you not agree with me?
I love Bernie Sanders. He is one of the only people that I've ever seen stand up for something, and there is proof of him fighting for black rights in the 70s. Like, that's just proves how authentic he is and how honestly with the people he is. Like, he is also, like we said earlier, you want someone that you sort of relate to. I don't necessarily relate to him. He's like a 70-year-old white man, but still, he makes me sort of relate to him and make me want to vote for him, but I wasn't even American.
And for a person that grew up in the 40s, 50s, 60s, when racism was
Rampant.
it wasn't at its peak, but it was pretty high. I mean, it's
There is one photo that I'm never ever going to fit. It's literally a photo of him being dragged by police fighting for black rights, and I just don't think you could ever have someone who is more sort of with the people.
Well,
Politician as well.
obviously, I'm about to giantly sway away from our politics and obviously why we're here today. Do you think Bernie could have won the election of Iran instead of Hillary?
Yes.
he could have if
I think if more young people had voted,
And then,
and if they hadn't been so stupid to vote
but
for
then
Romney.
obviously the domino effect being that. Do you think Theresa May would have called this election if she thinks she had more backing from America? Because obviously Bernie Sanders has come out and said Jeremy Corbyn, I suppose Jeremy Corbyn, obviously Donald Trump and Theresa May, obviously trying to strengthen some kind of relationship. Yeah, there's that famous picture of Trump helping Theresa May down the stairs, and it looks like they're holding hands and like a husband and wife, for example.
More than he also had to this
Yeah.
point.
An interesting thing about that is when he was talking about with Brexit, Donald Trump said he would prioritise a trade deal with the EU a lot more than he would, not a lot more, but in front of one with the UK. So that's one thing we need to slightly think about.
Well, Donald Trump, in his election campaign, he was very happy for us to leave the European Union. He was very much in favour of us doing it. And actually, I think now, Theresa May, becoming the biggest party with, well, obviously what looks like to be a DUP coalition, and I think, Trump has probably, spoken to Theresa May. If not, he will in the next few hours and congratulate her, well, which hasn't been what the Conservatives wanted, but at the end of the day is a Conservative victory. But I would say there's actually been two winners tonight, and it has been, Conservatives and the Labour Party. Both parties actually, neither leader having good reason to resign. The polls were saying, Jeremy Corbyn, would get some kind of shocking result here. With only like roughly 200 seats or so, or 220, between the mark, and actually, coming out with 261, it's a massive win for him. He has not won the election, but he certainly has won the hearts of the young people, which are actually the future of the UK. So, I actually reckon in the next election, and a lot of people, our age, for example, because obviously, I'll reiterate, none of us here are actually legally able to vote, and all of us has strong political opinions. And I feel like in the next election, if Jeremy Corbyn is still Labour leader, I reckon he has a good chance to get the majority.
I doubt he will be due to his age. If Jeremy Corbyn was like 20, 25 years younger.
But then if he was, this is the thing as well.
If he was
With this
younger, would
view-
he
with
be
his
Labour
views,
leader?
If he was younger, I don't think he'd be taken as seriously as he is. Like, the younger you are, I feel like the less mature you are viewed, and the less your opinions are really valued, almost. So if he was younger, I don't think he would have gotten as far as he
But
has.
the day we get a serious young politician, that will be the day everything will change.
On the subject of young people, what's everyone's views on votes at 16?
I actually believe, well, I'm kind of, 50-50 about it. I believe,
Yeah.
I believe that young people, do quite a lot of young people, obviously, in this election, has actually been really good for just politics in general, because it's really put it in the spotlight for young people. And, obviously a lot of young people, like obviously liking Jeremy Corbyn and the way he's doing things is obviously different, and he's captured their attention. But also, there's also the fact, of 16-year-olds, they don't, like, pay, much into the world. They haven't lived as long, obviously.
Yeah.
they're
And
getting-
many 16-year-olds don't know what they want in life at all.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Well, maybe this is what I would say, because I had to think about this, and I think if we did give just straight up the vote to 16 to, let's say, every 16-year-old, there would be quite a few who take it for granted,
Yeah.
take the opportunity for granted. Maybe there could be some sort of system where they could prove that they should be
Yeah.
allowed to vote.
and if
But then again, you could get like that's like putting it as an IQ test. It's not really a democracy. But that's then because then you have the counter argument of actually you're choosing intelligence, over people's
But-
views, and everyone's entitled
not
to
so
a
back
much
in the
intelligence,
USA
but more
in the
knowledge.
1940s,
Yeah, more knowledge
it used to
of-
be.
Knowledge
Knowledge
of
of things.
politics, of knowledge of stuff like that, or like
So do you think there should be like an application process so to put
Yeah.
it of
Yeah.
and then like reasoning why you would vote and why
Yeah.
you want to vote, not necessarily like telling the party who you would back,
Yeah.
because obviously
Exactly.
it could get a bit biased there, but application system of because it was said as well, David Cameron spoke about in the EU referendum, votes be going over to young 16 and 17-year-olds, and it was said maybe if they were allowed to vote, it could have pushed it back over to
Exactly.
us remaining in. Well, we wouldn't be in this mess, would we?
Obviously wouldn't. But if I was like, say, 16-year-olds were allowed to vote, if I were to vote yesterday, I wouldn't know who to vote for. I don't think many people will be in
Yeah.
that situation.
I think maybe schools could also do a little bit more to.
So do you think politics? Yeah, this is also what I've been hearing. As I was watching throughout the night, a lot of young people, well, a lot of people have just said in general how politics should be more into the education system and not necessarily a biased opinion on it, but how politics works. Like I didn't know to what the last election what austerity meant. Like there's all these big words being thrown around, and like it should be like more engaged. Like well, it's still only what 75% voter turnout. That's still a lot of people who have like a couple of million people who haven't put their opinion forward.
Definitely, I just don't. I really don't think it's taught well enough, because I've had to teach myself about
Yeah.
about. some of
I
these.
think most of us sat around this table have self-taught ourselves
Yeah,
on
'cause
politics in general.
if we listen to our parents, we'll be completely biased towards
Exactly.
one side. But if you teach yourself, see Labour, you see Conservative, Green, whatever, you just.
But
get a
then
better
like
opinion.
like the whole like so for example in this election I've witnessed people like for example I noticed someone was going through my Facebook support of Tory, which is actually like very rare for young people to openly turn out and say I am Tory and I don't believe in Jeremy Corbyn, and come and like no you're wrong, for example this, and like there's been a lot of kind of aggression towards this saying people's opinion is wrong, because
Yeah.
people have to remember people will vote for a certain party because it's their opinion, not right or wrong. People could say, oh yeah, it's wrong of Jeremy Corbyn to say this, it's wrong of that. Actually, it's not wrong, it's his opinion.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
think that's fine, just as long as you don't sort of slander people. I feel like that's a bit
Yeah.
low.
Yeah.
Like when people are
Like name calling,
yeah, when
for
people are saying
example.
harsh things about Jeremy Corbyn, like it's funny sometimes, but then you get to a point where it's just like it's just unnecessary.
I saw there was this YouTuber, so he's obviously got big influence in people's decisions. I was looking at some of the things he was putting out on social media, and there was a lot of name calling towards Labour voters. I won't mention the YouTuber's name, but he was saying things like anyone who votes Labour is a benefit scrounger.
Yeah, which is kind of unfair, because people will promote will support like a certain political party, literally just based on their opinion.
Yeah, and their life experience, and let's say their job, their social experiences, their current stature in life, just where they work, everything. It's not just it's basically based on who you are as a person, what you do. It's not to be for people to say, oh, this person is a benefit scrounger, or this. I think a lot of the names thrown are very immature, and
people have their reasons for voting
They do,
to one
yeah.
party or another.
so I think everyone should be
background.
respected for
Yeah.
who they vote.
Yeah, if you vote Conservative, you might have your reason for it. If you vote Labour, you might have your reason for it. Like, personally, professionally, you don't know what's going on in everyone's lives. You don't know why they're voting for that party.
Exactly.
Okay, so obviously we've obviously covered a lot this morning, and I feel like the majority of us, have put our opinions across. So obviously, moving on, we kind of touched on, how American politics might impact in like what's happened tonight. Do you think Donald, after what's happened in recent events, and obviously what happened unfortunately last weekend on London Bridge, and then obviously Trump excruciatingly like slating the London mayor for what he's saying. Do you think that would have really done Trump any favours if if it had totally switched around and Labour did come up with a majority or not?
Pardon?
So do you think?
Yes.
Okay, that American politics would have had a massive impact on the vote that happened, the general election tonight. Do you think?
Yeah, because I think when it came to the American election, afterwards there was a lot of people that came forward and said, "I wish I'd gone and voted now," because no one was really happy with the way it turned out. So everyone had thought, yeah, and I feel like this time people have realised that, and they're like, this is why we need to vote, because we need to take charge of what we want for our future, which is, like I said, why so many young people probably would have voted.
Also, more than 30% of the population didn't vote.
Yeah, and like everyone had such strong opinions on it, but like this was the turnout and barely anyone voted.
I mean, 30% in America, 90 million, roughly, around 80, 90 million.
It's ridiculous, but also I think Donald Trump needs to keep his mouth shut. Like, I
Donald
feel
Trump-
like he just doesn't think about some of the stuff he says sometimes, and it's just ridiculous.
Well, he hasn't said anything yet. We're still waiting for his tweet. Yeah, yet. We're still waiting for his tweet about the election.
Well, I'm guessing obviously America. It's not very they have only just really it's very early hours in the morning in America,
Yeah.
obviously and obviously we'll obviously get some.
Donald Trump, he needs some sleep, obviously. 70-year-old man needs to rest.
Well, apparently it's reported Donald Trump only sleeps for 4 hours every night.
Oof.
That's a bit crazy.
What's that?
Yeah.
4 a.m. to 8 a.m. Should be.
Well, obviously
I
a
also think
lot.
Donald Trump didn't know what he was getting himself into. Like, in
Well-
my head, I feel like he must have thought, oh, presidency.
Okay. So obviously, I think what we're actually going to do is obviously I think most of us are keen to see what comes out at 12:30 with Theresa May. So I think what we've decided is we are now going to take a break, and we're going to come back on air at 11:45. So we're now going to take a break for 45 minutes, come back at 11:45, and watch as Prime Minister does her certain speech and this and that. So we will be back for you at 12:15, and we will see you then. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you later for part 2. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in.